And he said this is the first time in 500 years that the people of South America have been able to take their fate into their own hands without foreign interference, and that means U.S. interference in the last couple of centuries. I mean, one measure of how important that was is that it wasn't recorded in the United States. So you have to search to find it. But yeah, it was a good thing that Bush, he tried. I mean, there was an attempt at a military coup in Venezuela, but it was beaten back. And they did succeed in throwing out the government of Haiti, the United States and France. But those are the, by traditional standards, that's pretty peaceful.
Dr. Chomsky, I'm hoping you can tell me a little bit, or at least your analysis on what the events unfolding in the country of Georgia, specifically the unified front put together by opposition groups and the opposition bloc against American-educated President Saakashvili.
Well, I mean, what we know about the background. Probably the immediate reason for the internal conflict is the war, the invasion that Saakashvili initiated in the territories that Abkhazia and South Ossetia were Russians over. You could debate the justice of this. I mean, these are two small provinces that have been calling for secession, and secessionist questions are always complex. Like, does Georgia have a right to use force to prevent secession, or doesn't? But what happened is that the Georgia, using U.S. arms, and surely with U.S. support, tried to regain control of them by force. The Russians reacted, obviously far more powerful militarily, and they pretty seriously harmed Georgia. And they haven't completely withdrawn. They have demanded that these provinces be recognized as independent, and so nobody agrees. And that's kind of where it stands. But there's, as usual, a pipeline issue. Almost anything in that area, you can be pretty sure there's going to be an oil-related issue. And there is a crucial pipeline that goes through Georgia, which is one of those pipelines designed to avoid Russia and Iran. So there's a kind of circuitous route and has to go through Georgia and into Turkey. That's all in the background. Now, exactly the internal dynamics of the Georgian conflict, I don't know enough to talk about.
You repeatedly mentioned how Israel was trying to aggressively expand its territory and take a very aggressive approach. I was wondering, you neglected to mention in '67 and '73 how the war started based on Israel being surprise attacked by the surrounding Arab nations. It wasn't Israel didn't start the war. So I was wondering how that should be construed as an expansionary tactic. Secondly, you neglected to talk about Israel's relinquishing the Sinai and the Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip just two years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so let's go just what you described is familiar, not being critical. That's the standard line. It's just totally false, and demonstrably false. In 1967, there is no question whatsoever that Israel attacked. You could argue that they were justified, that it was a justified preemptive attack, but it was certainly an attack. We could go into the background and decide that it was justified, but the facts aren't ambiguous, not even contested. I mean, at first Israel denied that it attacked, but that was wartime propaganda. And by now it's just universally accepted that they attacked. Okay, now their attack was, they offered justifications, and they're interesting ones. They offered, one of them was the same justification as the earlier attack on Egypt in 1956, at that time jointly with France and England, namely that their access to the outside world was being blocked at the Straits of Tiran. And they said, okay, that's kind of like an act of war, so we have a right to respond violently. I'll come back to that because it's important. And they had other pretexts. But the fact that they attacked is not in doubt. As for 73, I did mention What I said is that when Israel and the United States rejected Egypt's offer of a full peace treaty because it wanted to expand into Egyptian territory, Sadat, president of Egypt, kept declaring that if you expand into Egyptian territory, we'll go to war. Nobody believed it, okay? But they did. And as I said, it was a very serious thing for Israel. Now, was it an attack on Israel? That's a little hard to claim. I mean, when the United States sent troops to France and Normandy in 1944, was it invading Germany? That's certainly not the way we look at it. It was invading territory conquered by Germany. Okay? We don't call that an invasion of Germany. And Egypt was invading Egyptian territory conquered by Israel. Okay? So, and the reason was that Israel and the United States had rejected peace. As for the removing, they did in 1982 remove their settlements in Gaza.
In 2006. 2006.
That's the second one. You mentioned first the withdrawal from Sinai.
Oh, sorry.
The withdrawal from Sinai was in 1982. That was after the United States and Israel had accepted Sadat's 1971 offer. In Camp David, as I mentioned, the U.S. and Israel finally accepted the offer they'd rejected in 1971. And part of that offer required Israeli withdrawal from conquered Egyptian territory. So yeah, they withdrew as part of that offer, which they were forced to accept because of the trauma that they underwent in the 1973 war, which was practically led to the destruction of the state, which was itself the result of insisting on expansion versus security. Well, let's talk about the withdrawal from Gaza. That's an interesting case. That was 2005, September 2005. It was carried out by the right wing in Israel, Sharon. And they were very explicit about what they were doing. They were saying, look, Gaza's been turned into a hellhole. There's absolutely no point keeping a few thousand Israeli settlers there, illegally, of course, subsidized to live there, taking maybe 40% of the land and a large part of the resources, protected by a large part of the Israeli army. It's completely ridiculous. Let's take them out and put them over into the West Bank. Okay? And in fact, expansion of settlement in the West Bank was simultaneous with the withdrawal from Gaza. Furthermore, the withdrawal never took place. There hasn't been one day in which Gaza has not been occupied territory. Israel controls the borders completely. It carries out arbitrary acts of violence inside Gaza. It controls not only the land borders, but also the sea borders. I mean, it happens that Israel is regularly forcing Gaza fishermen to leave their territorial waters and go to, like a couple kilometers off the coast, where fishing is impossible because Israel has destroyed the sewage and power plants. So everything's so polluted you can't go there. And very likely the reason they're doing this is because they want to gain control over substantial natural gas resources that have been discovered in Gaza's territorial waters. So they're driving the fishermen back to shore. And in fact, Israel is right now negotiating with British Gas to try to steal